Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland, with me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Your guest's first glimpse of your wedding is through your wedding invitations. So just like you and your partner have your own personal style, and just like the style of your wedding will be unique, well, the style of your invitations will give you an opportunity to share a little bit about your unique personality and a little bit of a hint about your wedding theme. And so today we're talking all about 4 amazing ways that you can personalize your wedding invitations. I have 2 incredible guest experts who are joining me today. They are wedding stationery designers, and they're going to help me to articulate to you what some of these different things are that you can do and how you can do them. So I'm going to get started by telling you about 4 things that you can do to personalize your wedding invitations. These are the 4 things. Number 1, you can use your colors and your theme on the invitations to inject a little personality. Number 2, your font choice. Number 3, the wording on the invitations. And then number 4, all the finishing touches. So if you want to know how to use all 4 of these things to inject a little personality into your invitations, we're going to unpack each one. And we're going to begin with number 1, which is the colors and the theme. I had a chat with Donna from Amore Wedding Stationery, and she has given us a little more insight into how you can use your colors and your theme of your wedding invitations to show a little bit about your wedding theme that's coming up, but also a little bit about your personality and your unique style as a couple. So why don't we take a listen to what Donna had to say?
Hi everyone, it's Donna here from Amore Wedding Stationery up in Donegal. I'd like to say a quick thank you to Kelly for inviting me along to chat to you today. I specialise in all types of wedding and event stationery, but today I'm here to talk to you about choosing the colours and themes for your wedding stationery. Your invitations really set the tone for your special day, as it's the first glimpse your guests get of your wedding style, your theme, sometimes your personality, and even the formality of the event. So colours evoke all sorts of different emotions and associations. For example, blues can convey calmness and trust, while reds evoke passion and energy. Consider your emotions and what you want your wedding to evoke, and use that as a starting point for your colour schemes. Your colour of your invitation should also mirror the overall theme and setting of your wedding, so consider the colours of your venue too when choosing your stationery. Garden venues inspire green palettes, soft florals and such. Beach weddings call for blues, soft sandy neutrals, while autumn weddings could incorporate rich shades of reds, oranges and golds. Seasonal palettes are also a great way to help you decide on your colours, so let the season of your wedding guide your colour choice. Spring weddings look great with pastels, while winter weddings are wonderful with silvers and blues. Choosing your colour palette for your wedding invitations is an opportunity to be creative and to give your guests a preview of what to expect. Your wedding is a reflection of you and your partner's tastes and personalities too, so remember that there's no strict rules, only guidelines and suggestions. If you need any help at all with choosing your colours or your styles, I'm only ever an email away. So happy planning.
That was Donna from Amore Wedding Stationery. Thank you, Donna, for sharing a little bit more with us about the colours and the theme. And I just love the suggestions that Donna gave us about, what some of the colours actually convey. And so if you're at a point in your wedding planning journey where you haven't yet chosen your colours and your theme for your wedding, and you're considering what to do with your invitations, why don't you take some inspiration from what Donna shared? And, if you're trying to convey calmness and trust, she said blue is a great thing to do. If you want to convey passion and energy, red is a really good thing to do. And then obviously, as she said, your colors should actually mirror the overall theme and the setting of your wedding, including the colors of your venue, which could be a helpful way to get things started. And so really what we're trying to say here is you don't want the colors of your invitation to be random. You want to have purpose. You want to make sure that the theme of your wedding is conveyed in the colors, the design, and the theme of what you're going for when it comes to putting your invitations together. And so the next item when it comes to personalizing your wedding invitations is your font choice. Now, there's more than just the words. We'll get to the words. That's actually item number 3. But it's actually the style of the font that will help to convey, the formality and the structure of your wedding. So if you are planning a really formal wedding and, you want your guests to be dressed formally, of course, you're going to say in the wording at some point, you're going to say what the dress code is. And, you will have other ways of conveying how formal or how relaxed your wedding is going to be. But the actual font choice will give a hint as to how formal things are. So you have certain types of fonts that when you see them, you will know that this is going to be a formal wedding. Other types of fonts, when you see them, this is going to be really relaxed and informal. And so you want to make sure that you are conveying the right sense of formality and you're not unintentionally telling guests that the wedding is going to be much more formal than it is or much more informal than it is. So your font choice is really important to help convey this. One key thing to consider in addition to the formality is that you want your font to be easily readable. So sometimes when you're designing the invitation, if you are designing it yourself, which I don't recommend, and I'll explain a little bit more later, but if you're designing it yourself and you've got your screen zoomed in, you could be looking at your font, when it's really zoomed in and everything looks bigger, and then it's a lot easier to read. But then when you shrink it back down to the size that the font will actually be when everything is printed and your guests have the invitations in their hands, sometimes that font is not easy to read anymore because it's smaller and things like cursive fonts can sometimes be a little bit trickier to read. So it's important to make sure that your font is easy to read because you're conveying really important information. So here are a couple of things to consider when it comes to your font choices. Pick a font that's going to work with your other wedding stationery. So not only your invitations and your save the dates, but you want to think about things like your menus, your programs, the welcome signs, any other spaces where you're going to have stationery at your wedding day. You want to make sure that the invitation font choice is something you can carry through into the rest of the theme. Because remember what we said, we're going to pick things with purpose. So you don't necessarily have to mimic the exact font everywhere, but it can be in the same font family or just something that matches really well. Choose a font that's going to pair well with other fonts. So good branding usually requires multiple fonts, 2, sometimes 3 fonts that work really well together. So you might see like a script font, like a cursive font that's quite big and, like things like for headings or, if you're going to have a bigger piece of text, like perhaps the names of the guests that you're inviting on the envelope might be in a script font, something that looks really pretty but is bigger. And that would pair really well with a sans serif font, which works really well for smaller details, like things like the time of your wedding or the address, something that's going to be smaller but needs to be really, really clear. So consider the different font choices available to you. Think about how formal or informal you want them to look, and then think about how they pair with each other and how you can carry the style of the font, not necessarily the exact font, but the style of the font through in the rest of your wedding stationery. Okay, item number 3, which I've already alluded to, is the wording on your invitations. So we've just spoken in great detail about the actual font, but the words will also convey key information. And I know that's pretty obvious. You've got, the actual information that's being communicated, like the address, the date, the time, that kind of thing. Who's invited? Who's hosting the wedding? All of that kind of thing. The actual words convey information. But behind the words, the style of the words will convey a little bit of personality. So we've actually gone into even more detail about the content of the invitations, how you can phrase things for different scenarios. And we've got 3 podcast episodes where we went into a lot of detail about these things. It's episodes 76, 77, and 78 of the podcast where we spoke about what to put in your invitations, wedding invitation etiquette, which includes things like how do you address an invitation if you as a couple are hosting the wedding and paying for it yourselves versus how you would address the invitation if the wedding is hosted by your parents and paid for mostly by them. And all of that kind of thing really does play into the formality or the informal style of your wedding. And then episode 78 was all about making it easy for your guests to RSVP. And again, there's so many ways you can personalize that. How formal you want the wedding to be can be an indication of how guests RSVP. So things like, can you attend or not? And your options could be, yes, we will attend your wedding, or no, we will unfortunately not be there, or we regrettably cannot attend. But if you're having a more informal wedding, you can inject your personality a little bit more in the options that you give to your guests when it comes to RSVPing. Like you can say things like, heck yes, we can't wait. Those kinds of things. So if you want to find out a little bit more detail about the wording of your invitation, what is considered proper etiquette, how things can be a little bit more relaxed but still communicate the key details, I'm going to link episodes 76, 77, and 78 in the notes for this episode, and also on the Weddings Online blog, where you can get more detail about those three things, and that will help you to put your personality, your style, and the key details into your wedding invitations. And finally, item number 4 is all the finishing touches. So there's so many different things to consider when it comes to putting all your invitations together. Things like the type of paper you choose, the envelopes, the liners, if you're going to have an insert with additional information, ribbons, all those types of things are so many ways that you can inject a little bit of personality. So I spoke with Hazel from Coill Design, and she spoke through some different options available to you, especially if you want to add a personal touch or if you want to mirror your wedding theme in the finishing touches of your wedding invitations. So have a listen to what Hazel had to say.
Hi, this is Hazel from Coill Design here, and I'm just going to talk to you today about some ways you can personalise your wedding stationery through paper types that you choose, envelopes, envelope liners, and inserts that you put into your invitations. Starting with papers, there's many papers to choose from textured to metallic, pearlescent, recyclable, sustainable papers. And what we like to use mostly here at Coill Design is our plantable seeded paper, which can be grown in your garden or a pot and grow into beautiful wildflowers after use. These can also double as a favour for your guest if you wanted to use them for your menus or place cards, or for wedding scrolls or booklets. The guests can bring them home with them. Moving on to envelopes and envelope liners. Envelopes can come in all different colours and shapes. We like to use very earthy tones here in Coill Design, and our envelope liners can have a floral print, a plain colour, or a monogram motif of your initials. A beautiful touch if your guest is opening up your invitation and it reflects your wedding theme as well and your colours. Another important thing is to think about is the inserts you might put into your invitation, such as accommodation details or RSVP details. A lot of people nowadays will use a QR code, which can be printed onto your invitation or your RSVP. If you can't fit all your details onto your invitation, this is really handy for dietary requirements or any directions that your guest might need to know, or maybe the itinerary for your wedding day. Also, wax seals are a really, really nice idea to give a little final touch onto your envelope. Ribbons and twine or raffia are beautiful ways to wrap your invitation and your RSVP card, say, or an accommodation card together, and just give a general theme of what your wedding day is going to be like. As they say, your guest's first sign of your wedding or first glimpse of your wedding is through the wedding invitation. All these little details will add just a little bit of uniqueness and a memorable theme for your guests to see. And I hope this might help you choose your wedding theme or your invitations.
Thank you so much. That was Hazel from Coill Design. And she's right. There's so many different things you can do with your paper types, with the envelopes and liners, the inserts, the wax seals, ribbons, raffia, all of those things, which again tie into your wedding theme, tie into your unique personality. And of course, you can use these elements to personalize your wedding invitations, not just the actual invitation, but all the finishing touches. Now, we're going to finish with a quick bonus. And I have alluded to this earlier in the episode, but you're listening to this episode because you want to personalize your wedding invitations. And so I want to strongly encourage you to work with a professional wedding stationery designer, because if you don't and you create things yourself, then either the quality is going to be inhibited or you're going to end up online looking for free or really cheap kind of templates and things that so many other couples have used before. I've seen this before. I've received wedding invitations from couples where I knew that they had used some kind of free template that they found online, where they've designed things themselves. And there are a couple of things that end up happening. Either you end up with a wedding invitation that looks exactly like somebody else's because there's only so much you can customize those templates online, or you end up with information that's incorrect or spelt incorrectly because you don't have that same level of quality control where somebody is checking for those finer details. And then you spend money printing hundreds of invitations, and you realize there's actually a really critical piece of information that is spelt or typed incorrectly. So if you're listening to this episode because you want to personalize your wedding invitations, the best way to do that is to work with a stationery designer who's going to ask you all the right questions to understand your theme, the kind of formality that you're going for, and of course, how you can personalize things and make them unique to you. Well, thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.